Today's guest is Samantha Toombs, Sam. She has spent 25 years leading digital transformation programs and sales and businesses across the UK public sector for world-leading tech brands. She has been helping to improve outcomes across central government, schools and universities, hospitals, emergency services, and local authorities. She has also been the only woman in many rooms, the first woman to chair the BT Wales board. She has independently served a board serving the First Minister of Wales, helping to transform Wales' economy. She has led public sector transformation programs that touch thousands of sites, negotiated contracts where the stakes are high and politics higher, sat at tables where decisions shape how citizens access healthcare, education, and emergency support. But her clients and colleagues don't describe her leadership in terms of networks or contracts. They describe her as authentic, balanced, and as a leader who makes people feel seen. Sam believes that real leadership isn't about having all the answers or being the toughest person in the room. It's about being conscious, about building organizations where diversity isn't just a policy and where the job of a leader is to serve their people. I'm Virpi Tervonen, mentor at Mentors for Women. It's my pleasure to speak with Sam Toombs, also a mentor here with us. She's been a board chair, a sales leader, run a business over $500 million annum, diversity role model, and the woman who believes that digital transformation means nothing if it doesn't serve people. Sam, you have accomplished a lot. What originally drew you into the intersection of technology and public service?
Virpi, I guess it started when I was 14, really. So it's a long story. But when I was 14, I wanted to help people express their feelings through art. Now, it's quite a leap. It's quite a jump into what I do today. But essentially, what I wanted to do was help people. Fast forward a couple of years, excuse me. Unfortunately, my dad got cancer and passed away when I was 16 and left my family, in quite a serious financial situation. So I decided at that point in time, after a couple of years of being bereft, I suppose, that what I needed to do was earn some money. And I decided that the largest amount of money I could possibly earn was in the IT space. So I put myself through university and eventually did really quite well for people where I come from there and got myself an IT job. But over the years and the early years of my career, up until the age of about 30, something was missing. And what was missing was that I'd lost my true connection and I still wanted to help people. So I moved quite quickly into transformation and delivery of public sector services, because what that meant was I could genuinely help people and transform places and help the residents of the UK whilst also earning some money. And then at the age of 30, I went on a leadership development talent program in the UK. I was one of 20 something people to be accepted, which was great for a large tech organisation. And I asked them to observe me because I did something different compared to everybody else. And they said, you know what you do, Sam? You go around creating harmony and balance. And what that meant was, whilst everybody else was trying to be a leader in the room, I was going around asking everybody if they were okay and if I could help them. And then I realised what I was actually doing was creating high-performing teams. And I went straight back to the age of 14 and realised I was helping people after all. So for me, it's that balance of money, but also helping people at the same time. I found that intersection perfect for what I needed at the time and what I love doing now.
You describe yourself as a conscious business and sales leader. What does conscious mean to you, especially when it comes to sales and big public sector deals? You covered that a little bit, but maybe you can go deeper how it looks like and also how others can maybe model that.
That's a really tough question, and I suppose it's going to be, different for everybody. But for me, it is always about the balance of people and profit. So quite often in my past, I've come across leaders who are difficult to work with and not very people focused. Now, what I try to do is flip that on its head, really. So I like to deliver outcomes for citizens and transform places. That's what I get out of bed every day to do. And I also like to help people and create high performing teams. So both of those things, as well as a healthy dose of emotional intelligence, means for me that I deliver results and proper business results and growth in a way that I am comfortable with and that is authentic to me. So it's about getting the right balance of all of those things that are important to me and that I'm comfortable with, and the balance of people and profit. I guess, though, really for me, it's about, like I said in my previous answer, how I've translated things and flipped things on their head. So if I create a high performing team in the best possible way that I can, the numbers will follow. And it's in that order for me rather than the other way around.
You became the first woman to chair the BT Wales board, and you have chaired more than one geographic board across BT UK. What did that milestone mean to you?
Well, when you think about it, BT is probably 45 years old as a modern organisation, but then it goes back 175 years, the legacy and the heritage of the company. So it's, I call myself just a girl from the valleys, the Welsh Valleys, and grew up in quite an area of poverty. So it was surreal, but it was also the culmination of a lot of hard work and determination. But most importantly for me, what that meant was a huge sense of responsibility. So BT, as it was then, employed nearly something like 12,000 people in Wales. It delivered nearly £1 billion to the economy and spent over £120 million per annum with local suppliers. So what that really means is local jobs for local people. So again, it goes back to creating better places and helping people, right? That's what I do. That's what I have to draw everything back to, because that's my passion and purpose. But at the time as well, Virpi, it was COVID. Some things during that time were terrible and took me by surprise. So I'd have change requests coming across my desk that I never thought I would ever see in my lifetime around increasing capacity across bandwidth and networks so that families could view funerals remotely. Okay. We helped set up Nightingale hospitals. We helped connect patients digitally so that they could be at least digitally in person with their relative who was end of life. So a huge amount of responsibility to make a big difference in people's lives. That's absolutely what it meant to me at that time.
That's really amazing work that you have done in very challenging situations that no one knew what to do actually. And you really were able to navigate all
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But I had a fantastic team though.
Yes, the one that you built with your way to create high performing team.
Well, yeah, there was that, but some fantastic people to work with.
What would you say to women who are stepping into their first board or non-executive role and feel they don't fit the traditional mold?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't fit the traditional mold. I think that's a strength rather than a weakness. Is there even a traditional mold these days? I don't think there is. I think everyone has their unique strengths, and diversity and difference should be considered a key strength, in my opinion. And what would life be if there was no difference? It would just be the bland leading the bland, and we would never learn anything from each other. So I think the most important thing actually is authenticity. It's not about fitting the mold, it's about authenticity, showing up every day showing people who you are and how vulnerable you are really, in my experience, stronger bonds with people, and psychologically people can tell, and they're more likely to follow you when you're being authentic than when you're not.
I'm just curious, how do you know that you're being authentic?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when I was younger, I often had burnout, and I did an exercise in the leadership development program that I talked about earlier that mapped who I am as a person and how I operated in a work environment. And there was a gap. There was quite a big gap in some circumstances. So what I then realised was the reason why I was burning out was because I was operating outside of my authentic self, and that wasn't sustainable. So quite often now, even though I reflect quite a lot on who I am and how I show up, I spend hours self-reflecting every week. But I will realise at a point in time that I'm actually exhausted. And the reason why I've been exhausted, or I am exhausted, is because I've been operating once again outside of my authentic self. So then I recalibrate, think about who I am, what matters most, what my purpose is, and then try to align myself to my authenticity as much as possible. But what I will say is it's okay also to operate outside of your authentic self if you know you're doing that to get an outcome that's important. You can switch it on or you can switch it off so long as you know that that's what you're doing for an outcome. But it's never good to be inauthentic for a long period of time because you just get burnt out.
Thank you for sharing all that. What are some small practical things leaders can do tomorrow to create a sense of belonging, particularly for women who may feel like the only one in the room?
I don't think, Rupi, you can create a sense of belonging for yourself if you're in the wrong organisation to begin with, or you're surrounded by the wrong people to begin with. I think that's a pretty really difficult thing to do. However, what I would say is that most of us, we have more in common than what divides us. So it's essential to seek out people and truly understand in a bit more detail and in a deeper dive about who they are and what's important to them. And I think then most people will find you actually have more in common with someone than what divides you. But if you're a leader, obviously there's all sorts of frameworks and practices around creating belonging in the workplace. Diversity, equity, inclusion is clearly a significant part of that. But I think if you're in the wrong organisation, that's pretty difficult and you need to have a really good think about that. But if you're in a leadership position, and what I tend to do is, which is a privileged position, is recruit some people who are different to me and have different values and strengths, but have the same passion and purpose. So you get that almost driving forward team that cares about the same things, but they all look different. They all have different background experiences and different skills to bring to the table. So choose your organisation is what I would say. Or if you're on a board, the board that you're working on, try to understand people in a deeper, more meaningful way, and you'll find out you've got more in common. And or if you're able to surround yourself with the right kind of people that challenge you but can equally make you feel like you belong.
Sounds like it's more about finding that common connection that connects you and having that shared vision, and also probably shared values as well, so that you can move along towards that shared vision with similar type of value priority.
And I think absolutely. And I think this is not about being the same. It's about embracing difference, but with people who share the same purpose and understand the collective outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
When you mentor women, what themes come up again and again, especially for those working in tech or public sector environments?
I'm going to say probably a feeling of unworthiness, actually. A lot of women and men feel confident actually in what they do and what they've achieved. But what I find quite interesting is that women, or some women, or most of the women I've mentored, often say, I just did a bit of this or I just did a bit of that. And what they've actually done is some really large, complex change programs, and they think that's normal. But what's normal for them is not normal for everybody. So quite often what I do is I help reframe and put labels on things. So if someone says, I just did this, actually what they're really saying is, for example, they help transform a team and double the margin over a 12-month period, but they're not able to easily articulate that. I think very often women underplay their outcomes and their achievements, and sometimes they need some help in bigging themselves up and putting some labels on things.
Sounds like you help your mentees to actually have a good floor. Many of the mentees that you have worked, the floor is someone else's ceiling. So how they set that is very different, and you help them to actually have a good reference what they have done and also the frame to
Yeah,
see
I
it
think
from.
I think some people think what they do is normal, but actually it's fantastic compared to some other people. Not everyone, for example, because I'm driven and because I overcame adversity, I'm able to figure out, I'll pick a point where I want to be in a year's time, and I will drive myself to get there because I can figure out things in baby steps, right? It took me a long time in my career to realize not everybody thinks like I do, and not everybody is able to do what you do or what the next person does. So everyone, I think, has a superpower. They just assume everybody else has it when they don't. It's quite surprising for some people and some of the women that I've mentored to understand that what they do is actually quite specific to them, and it's quite a super strength. It's just nobody's ever told them even before. So it's calling out those things and putting labels on things and helping them understand that it's a strength compared to most other people. It's a really simple thing, but often people think it's normal when it isn't.
Naming things makes invisible things more tangible.
Yeah, and,
Abs-
and actually put it on their CV as well, right? So just rewording things in a way that actually demonstrates the value that they bring rather than them playing it down and making themselves small. I think that's definitely a little cheerleader for people, helping them big up what they've done rather than allowing them to play it down and play it small is quite an important role, I think.
You mentioned earlier that you use hours to do self-reflection during the week. Can you share a time when reflective practice helped you turn a setback into a growth moment instead of letting it knock your confidence?
I'm lucky, VP. I live in South Wales next to the beach, so my house backs onto the beach. So I make sure that when I am at home, I take the dog for a walk, and I walk for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening, and make sure I think about things from the day and from the week. But what I also do is I do some public speaking on my life, in the hope that, particularly in Wales, it helps inspire, say, school children, for example, want to climb up the social ladder and build a better life for themselves, because if I can, anyone can. So what I talk about there is I talk about some really big and some bad moments in my life and some really big good moments in my life. But in particular, I learned during that point in time and how that shaped me as a person and a leader. For example, I talk about when my dad died when I was 16 and left the family in a really scary financial position. What that taught me then was, after a couple of years, granted, when I'd kind of dragged myself out of a horrible situation, it taught me how to be relentless and have significant focus. I then talk about when I was 22 and I lived in Germany because I wanted to get out of the village I was brought up in, how it was my first job after leaving university, and I thought everybody thought like I did, but they didn't. And I got particularly frustrated in a moment in work and shouted at somebody. And what that taught me was all about emotional intelligence. Someone once told me, don't get mad, don't get even, get what you want. I'll never forget that. So there's some fantastic moments, I think, in people's lives, if they were only to reflect and look backwards, where they learn some really, really big lessons that shaped them as an individual and as a person, which then became their core values and principles. So that's how I reflect on a daily, weekly basis, but over the years as well, because that really concentrates who I am as an individual and how I've got to where I've got to and the values and principles that I hold dear.
There is an increasing demand for mentors for women, and you're one of the mentors who are mentoring women. For women who feel they have to have it all together to be a mentor, what would you say?
I would say nobody's got it all together. If you wait for that, you're never going to be one. I would also say that, and I'm going to say the same word again, that authentic is better than perfect. I love authenticity. I love difference. I think the world would be really, really boring otherwise. I think everyone has something to offer. Everyone has a different perspective. And someone's little thought that they think is normal could actually be a light bulb moment for somebody else in their lives. So I think everyone has something magnificent to offer to another person. No one should ever assume that you couldn't change someone else's life, quite frankly, in just by doing something very small.
And doing something that is very normal for you.
Yeah, and very normal for you. Normal for you is fantastic for the next person, is significant growth for the next person, or is something to avoid for the next person even. Everyone's experience offers a learning point for somebody else, whether that's good or bad. It offers a learning point which someone can take or ignore. But that's up to the person listening and receiving that. All you can do is offer your experience and trust that they will learn something from it.
Thank you so much, Sam. Last question. Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't?
I don't think so, Virpi. I think you'll notice that I keep coming back to the same core themes. That is how I am and how I show up. I guess I'm looking forward to the next, or however long I've got left in this industry, to try and make a difference, really. So, yeah, no, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Sam, for this interview today.
Cheers.